First, let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. Our very means of conquest. Tato Jayam Udirayat is to remember Lord Krishna by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. And as we discussed yesterday, in the last quarter of the talk, about why hearing in the association of devotees is effective. From the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we thought about the verse, Smaranta smarayantascha mito gauga haram harim bhaktya sanjayate bhaktya. This verse says that by coming together to remember Krishna and to cause others to remember Krishna, one destroys aga oga, unlimited sins within the heart. And at the same time, one promotes oneself by this process, bhaktya sanjayate bhaktya, from one type of bhakti to another. That is from sadhana bhakti to bhava bhakti. This is the path by hearing in the association of devotees. And the last line says that the devotees who are engaged in this process feel bliss, ecstasy, and their bodies even go through transformations by this process. And the reason it's so very effective is because Krishna is pleased when the devotees come together and remind one another. He in fact mentions it in the Bhagavad Gita. Machita magata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantashchamam nityam tushanti cha ramanti cha. And they get great satisfaction and bliss by discussing Krishna. In the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, first chapter, Krishna's Kaviraj quotes the verse, Tesham satata yuktanam vajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhayogam tam yena mam upayantite. Where's that from? Don't say. I'm asking someone else. Where does it come from? Where does it come from? Which verse? Okay, anybody? 10:10. These are the four what are called nutshell verses within the Bhagavad Gita. They're very important. And in this verse, Krishna says that he enlightens the devotees from within their own hearts because of their sincere desire to know him. And in the purport, Prabhupada mentions that devotees come together the way academics might or scientists might. You know, the kind that wear a corduroy jacket and they have a little patch on their sleeve and a big overstuffed chair, and then they talk about their findings from their research. And he said devotees are just like that. They should sit together and discuss the findings from their own hearing and chanting. And in this way, Krishna, from within the heart, becomes pleased and he enlightens the devotees. So it's a sublime process. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming on a dark, stormy night. It was a dark and stormy night. That's how we'll start. We're on the Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 2nd chapter, text number 1. I'm sorry to skip the summary, but I like surprises. And when I read the summary, then I'm less surprised. Shukadeva Goswami said, "My dear king, the servants of Lord Vishnu are always very expert in logic and arguments. After hearing the statements of the Yamadutas, they replied as follows. 2. The Vishnudutas said, alas, how painful it is that irreligion is being introduced into an assembly where religion should be maintained. Indeed, those in charge of maintaining the religious principles are needlessly punishing a sinless, unpunishable person." Purport: the Vishnudutas accused the Yamadutas of violating the religious principles by attempting to drag Ajamila to Yamaraj for punishment. Yamaraj is the officer appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to judge religious and irreligious principles and to punish people who are irreligious. However, if completely sinless people are punished, the entire assembly of Yamaraj is contaminated. This principle applies not only in the assembly of Yamaraj, but throughout human society also. In human society, properly maintaining religious principles is the duty of the king's court or the government. Unfortunately, in this yuga, Kali Yuga, the religious principles are tampered with, and the government cannot properly judge who is to be punished and who is not. It is said that in the Kali Yuga, if one cannot spend money in court, one cannot get justice. Indeed, in courts of justice, it is often found that magistrates are bribed for favorable judgments. Sometimes religious men who preach the Krishna consciousness movement for the benefit of the entire populace are arrested and harassed by the police and courts. The Vishnudutas, who are Vaiṣṇavas, lamented for these very regrettable facts. Because of their spiritual compassion for all the fallen souls, Vaiṣṇavas go out to preach according to the standard method of all religious principles. But unfortunately, because of the influence of Kali Yuga, Vaishnavas have dedicated their lives to preaching the glories of the Lord, are sometimes harassed and punished by courts on false charges of disturbing the peace. Text 3. A king or governmental official should be so well qualified that he acts as a father, maintainer, and protector of the citizens because of affection and love. He should give the citizens good advice and instructions according to the standard scriptures and should be equal to everyone. Yamaraj does this, for he is the supreme master of justice, and so do those who follow in his footsteps. However, if such persons become polluted and exhibit partiality by punishing an innocent, blameless person, where will the citizens go to take shelter for their maintenance and security? Purport. The king, or in modern times the government, should act as the guardian of the citizens by teaching them the proper goal of life. The human form of life is especially meant for realization of one's self and one's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because this cannot be realized in animal life. The duty of the government, therefore, is to take charge of training all the citizens in such a way that by a gradual process they will be elevated to the spiritual platform and will realize the self and his relationship with God. This principle was followed by kings like Maharaj Yudhishthira, Maharaj Parikshit, Lord Ramachandra, Maharaj Ambarish, and Prahlad Maharaj. The leaders of the government must be very honest and religious, because otherwise all the affairs of the state will suffer. Unfortunately, in the name of democracy, rogues and thieves are electing other rogues and thieves to the most important posts in government. Recently, this has been proven in America, where the president had to be condemned and dragged down from his post by the citizens. This is only one case, but there are many others. Because of the importance of the Krishna consciousness movement, people should be Krishna conscious and should not vote for anyone who is not Krishna conscious. Then there will be actual peace and prosperity in the state. When a Vaishnava sees mismanagement in the government, he feels great compassion in his heart and tries his best to purify the situation by spreading the Krishna consciousness movement. Text 4. The mass of people follow the example of a leader in society and imitate his behavior. They accept as evidence whatever the leader accepts. Purport. Although Ajamila was not punishable, the Yamadutas were insisting on taking him away to Yamaraj for punishment. This was a dharma, contrary to religious principles. The Vishnudutas feared that if such irreligious acts were allowed, the management of human society would be spoiled. In modern times, the Krishna consciousness movement is trying to introduce the right principles of management for human society. But unfortunately, the governments of Kali Yuga do not properly support the Hare Kṛṣṇa movement because they do not appreciate its valuable service. The Hare Kṛṣṇa movement is the right movement for ameliorating the fallen condition of human society, and therefore governments and public leaders in every part of the world should support this movement to completely rectify humanity's sinful condition. Text number 5 through 6. People in general are not very advanced in knowledge by which to discriminate between religion and irreligion. The innocent, unenlightened citizen is like an ignorant animal sleeping in peace with its head on the lap of its master, faithfully believing in the master's protection. If a leader is actually kind-hearted and deserves to be the object of a living entity's faith, how can he punish or kill a foolish person who is fully surrendered in good faith and friendship? Purport. The Sanskrit word Vishnudutas refers to one who breaks faith or causes a breach of trust. The mass of people should always feel security because of the government's protection. Therefore, how regrettable it is for the government itself to catch a breach of trust, to cause a breach of trust, and put the citizens in difficulty for political reasons. We actually saw during the partition days in India that although Hindus and Muslims were living together peacefully, manipulation by politicians suddenly aroused feelings of hatred between them, and thus the Hindus and Muslims killed one another over politics. This is a sign of Kali Yuga. In this age, animals are kept nicely sheltered, completely confident that their masters will protect them. But unfortunately, as soon as the animals are fat, they are immediately sent for slaughter. Such cruelty is condemned by Vaiṣṇavas like the Vishnudutas. Indeed, the hellish conditions already described await the sinful men responsible for such suffering. One who betrays the confidence of a living entity and who takes shelter of him in good faith, whether that living entity be a human being or an animal, is extremely sinful. Because such betrayals now go unpunished by the government, all of human society is terribly contaminated. The people of this age are therefore described as manda, sumandamatayo mandabhagya, hipadrita. As a consequence of such sinfulness, men are condemned, manda. Their intelligence is unclear, sumandamataya. They are unfortunate, mandabhagya. And therefore, they are always disturbed by many problems, upadrita. This is their situation in this life, and after death, they are punished in hellish conditions. Text 7. Ajamila has already atoned for all his sinful actions. Indeed, he has atoned not only for sins performed in one life, but for those performed in millions of lives, for in a helpless condition he chanted the holy name of Narayan. Even though he did not chant purely, he chanted without offense, and therefore he is now pure and eligible for liberation. Purport. The Yamadutas had considered only the external situation of Ajamila. Since he was extremely sinful throughout his life, they thought he should be taken to Yamaraj, and did not know that he had become free from the reactions of all his sins. The Vishnudutas therefore instructed that because he had chanted the 4 syllables of the name Narayan at the time of his death, he was freed from all sinful reactions. In this regard, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes the following verses from the Smriti Shastra. Namno hi yavati shakti papa nirharane hare tavat kartum nashaknoti patakam pataki nara. Simply by chanting one holy name of Hari, a sinful man can counteract the reactions to more sins than he is able to commit. Ava Vaishnapi Yannamni Kirtite Sarvapatakai Human Vimuchite Sadhya Singha Traster Mragair Iva. If one chants the holy name of the Lord even in a helpless condition, or without desiring to do so, all the reactions of his sinful life depart, just as when a lion roars, all the small animals flee in fear. Garuda Purana. Sakrit uchcharitam jena har it yakshara dvayam baddha parikarastena mokshaya gamanam prati. By once chanting the holy name of the Lord, which consists of the two syllables Hare, one guarantees his path to liberation. Skanda Purana. These are some of the reasons why the Vishnudutas objected to the Yamadutas taking Ajamila to the court of Yamaraj. Text number 8. The Vishnudutas continued. Even previously, while eating, and at other times, this Ajamila would call his son, saying, "My dear Narayan, please come here." Although calling the name of his son, he nevertheless uttered the 4 syllables, Narayana. Simply by chanting the name of Narayana in this way, he sufficiently atoned for the sinful reactions of millions of lives. Purport: previously, when engaged in sinful activities to maintain his family, Ajamila chanted the name of Narayan without offenses. To chant the holy name of the Lord just to counteract one's sinful activities, or to commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name, is offensive. Namno balad yasya hi papa buddhi. But although Ajamila engaged in sinful activities, he never chanted the holy name of Narayan to counteract them. He simply chanted the name Narayan to call his son. Therefore, his chanting was effective. Because of chanting the holy name of Narayan in this way, he had already vanquished the accumulated sinful reactions of many, many lives. In the beginning, he was pure, but although he later committed many sinful acts, he was offenseless because he did not chant the holy name of Narayan to counteract them. One who always chants the holy name of the Lord without offenses is always pure. As confirmed in this verse, Ajamila was already sinless, and because he chanted the name of Narayan, he remained sinless. It did not matter that he was calling his son. The name itself was effective. 9:10. The chanting of the holy name of Lord Vishnu is the best process of atonement for a thief of gold or other valuables, for a drunkard, for one who betrays a friend or relative, for one who kills a brahmana, or for one who indulges in sex with the wife of his guru or another superior. It is also the best method of atonement for one who murders women, the king or his father, for one who slaughters cows, and for all other sinful men. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord Vishnu, such sinful persons may attract the attention of the Supreme Lord, who therefore considers, because this man has chanted my holy name, my duty is to give him protection. We can just stand up for a second because Hare Kṛṣṇa. Yadabar Prabhu Ki. Jai. Now, this is a very important verse, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives it a really long commentary. Prabhupada saves his commentary for the end of this chapter, where he puts notes together that include the extensive multi-page commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Just a footnote. I'm still scrolling, and it's still purport. And it's a really important one, too. Still going. Still going. Okay. We're at text number 11. By following the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies or undergoing atonement, sinful men do not become as purified as by chanting once the holy name of Lord Hari. Although ritualistic atonement may free one from sinful reactions, it does not awaken devotional service, unlike the chanting of the Lord's names, which reminds one of the Lord's fame, qualities, attributes, pastimes, and paraphernalia. Purport: Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that the chanting of the holy name of the Lord has special significance that distinguishes it from the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies of atonement for severe, more severe, or most severe sinful actions. There are 20 types of religious scriptures called Dharma Shastras, beginning with the Manu Samhita and Parashara Samhita, but herein it is stressed that although one may become free from the reactions of the most sinful activities by following the religious principles of these scriptures, this cannot promote a sinful man to the stage of loving service to the Lord. On the other hand, chanting the holy name of the Lord even once not only frees one immediately from the reactions of the greatest sins, but also raises one to the platform of rendering loving service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is described as Uttama Shloka because he is famous for his glorious activities. Thus one serves the Lord by remembering his form, his attributes and pastimes. Srila Vishnudutas Chakravarti Thakur explains that this is all possible simply by chanting the Lord's holy name because of the Lord's omnipotence. What cannot be achieved through the performance of Vedic rituals can be easily achieved through the chanting of the Lord's holy name. To chant the holy name and dance in ecstasy is so easy and sublime that one can achieve all the benefits of spiritual life simply by following this process. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declares, Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtana. All glories to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan. The Sankirtan movement we have started offers the best process for becoming purified of all sinful reactions and coming immediately to the platform of spiritual life. Text number 12. The ritualistic ceremonies of atonement recommended in the religious scriptures are insufficient to cleanse the heart absolutely, because after atonement, one's mind again runs toward material activities. Consequently, for one who wants liberation from the fruitive reactions of material activities, the chanting of the Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra or glorification of the name, fame, and pastimes of the Lord is recommended as the most perfect process of atonement, because such chanting eradicates the dirt from one's heart completely. Purport. The statements in this verse have been confirmed previously in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.17. Srinvatam Sakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Tridantaksto Hyapadrani Vidunoti Suhritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who relishes his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. It is the special mercy of the Supreme Lord that as soon as he knows that one is glorifying his name, fame, and attributes, he personally helps cleanse the dirt from one's heart. Therefore, simply by such glorification, one not only becomes purified, but also achieves the results of pious activities. Punya Shravana Kirtana. Punya Shravana Kirtana refers to the process of devotional service. Even if one does not understand the meaning of the Lord's name, pastimes, or attributes, one is purified simply by hearing or chanting of them. Such purification is called sattva bhavana. One's main purpose in human life should be to purify his existence and achieve liberation. As long as one has a material body, one is understood to be impure. In such an impure material condition, one cannot enjoy a truly blissful life, although everyone seeks it. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.1 says, Tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam shudyet. One must perform tapasya, austerity, to purify his existence in order to come to the spiritual platform. The tapasya of chanting and glorifying the name, fame, and attributes of the Lord is a very easy purifying process by which everyone can be happy. Therefore, everyone who desires the ultimate cleansing of his heart must adopt this process. Other processes such as karma, jnana, and yoga cannot cleanse the heart. Absolutely. And I'll take a few reflections or questions. Yes. Prayag Prabhu.
Hare Kṛṣṇa Maharaj. Just in this last purport that we read, Prabhupada says, even if one does not understand the meaning of the Lord's names, pastimes, or attributes, one is purified simply by hearing or chanting of them. So I was just curious, what does it mean to be purified? Because if we're hearing and chanting, where does that propensity to still continue trying to enjoy the material world come from if, as Prabhupada said, we're purified?
Well, we'll find the answer to that last question out in this section of the Bhagavatam, because Ajamila was in a similar situation. In fact, he fits the bill of what you're describing, because he wasn't aware that he was chanting the Lord's name. He just, because of his previous momentum, had named his youngest son Narayan. It's just part of the culture. And by saying Narayan, he was free from all sinful reactions. That will be established in the Bhagavatam itself. However, the question then comes, how was it that he went on sinning even after that? And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur answers by saying that it's like a snake who has been defanged. And although the snake continued to bite, or I should say, such a snake continues to bite without fangs, and there's no consequence. So, in a similar way, the sinful reactions of Ajamila were eradicated. But there's a way in which there's a semblance. There's what is called the remnants of us, and the tendency to go on sinning are still there. That's mentioned in the purport to Tenu Kampam Susamikshemanu Bunjana Evatma Kritam Vibhakam. In that verse, it's mentioned that devotees seemingly get karma because look at what they're going through. Even the Pandavas. So someone may say, how is it that pure devotees and those who are chanting the holy name, or somebody chanted incidentally in this case, is still going through the vicissitudes, word you used last night, of the material world. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur answers that even though all the sinful reactions are cleared, there's still a slight inclination to be connected to the material world due to past momentum. It's inconsequential, however, as it we'll find out in the case of Ajamila, that he was already freed from that, even though he was still in the material world. Now, when we're freed from all sinful reaction, this body is a sinful reaction. Aprarabdha palam papam kutam bijam palon mukam krame naiva praliyante Vishnu bhakti ratatmanam. The Padma Purana says the process of devotional service destroys all forms of all forms of sinful reaction. From aprarabdha, that which it's not even manifest yet, to prarabdha, which is this body, which is a manifestation, a filling in of our desires from the last life. Patanjali Muni says, when you leave the body, there's the conglomerated desires, material desires that you have, is accommodated by material nature, just the way when you step on wet sand, you make an impression with your foot. If you were to put plaster of Paris in there, you could make a mold of your foot. So this body is a mold from our last life, filling in by material nature because of our past material desires and reactions to our involvement in the material world. So even the Lord maintains that prarabdha for instance, pure devotees, because he gives them the facility to still use the body in the material world to preach. So there's different circumstances, even though the karmic reactions have been finished, there's still the last remnants, impressions, kind of like if you burn a papadum when you're cooking, it may be long gone, but then somebody comes in and says, hey, who burned a papadum? So there's that trace left over, but for pure devotees, the Lord personally maintains their prarabdha so they can go on preaching in the world. Thank you for your question. Yes, Divyanam Prabhu.
Thank you much for the first part of the reading. I was trying to reflect and closely examine the life of Ajamila, and it seems it is a good example of what to do and what not to do. And I was thinking that one may also look at his life story and think, what a life. He did everything bad he could and yet got the opportunity to go back to spiritual world. So I'm just wondering, how can I take this as an example of what I'm trying to say is Ajamil can be considered as an exceptional candidate for in Bhagavatam, having mentioned that, so we don't take an advantage and think, I can do what I like, and at the end of the life I may be able to also chant like this and go back to Godhead. So would you make a comment or say something on that?
Yeah, that's not a good idea. We should be honest and sincere. We could consider what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam braja aham tvam sarva papibhyo mokshayishami masujaha. He offers us the opportunity by taking shelter of him to be absolved of our involvement in the material world and to fully take shelter of him. So a sincere, good-hearted person will not take advantage of the good graces of a benefactor. It's unseemly. So we should consider any ways in which we are dishonest to be especially uncouth. Now there is a case, and it's usually the case, that those who take to devotional service sincerely still may have a propensity to enjoy the material world. But if they sincerely try, then they won't be affected, or it's not considered to be an offense. As in the verse, Lord Krishna speaks in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, where he says, Jata Shraddha Matkatasu Nirvina Sarvakarmasu Veda Dukatmakam Kamams Parityage Pyanishvara Tato Bhajetamam Prita Shraddha Lurjara Nishjaya Jushamanams Tatam Kamams Duko Darkams Jagarayan. There he describes the situation where faith and hearing and chanting and the holy name certainly has awakened. There's plenty of room. Please come on in as close as you wish. There's plenty of seats and there's plenty of space up here and over here. We fit as many as 2,000 people in here last night. In this verse, Krishna describes an interim period in the life of a devotee. Jata means something's arisen, it's born. And what's born? Shraddha, faith, matkata, the power, the potency of hearing about me or chanting my names. Nirvina sarvakarmasu. The person also understands the implications of the material world and karma. Veda, dukatmakam kamams, he also knows that all sense gratification leads to misery. But then it said, Parityage Pyanishvara. Parityage means to give something up. And Ishvara, we know, means the Supreme Lord, but it also means the power to do something. So Pratyagapyanishvara means, but still, even though he knows all these things, he doesn't have the power to give up his involvement completely in the material world. Then Krishna goes on to say, Tato bhajetamam prita juralur sharanishchala shradhalam juranishchaya. You should be very determined to go on with the process because you should understand that you're very dear to me. And he says, you can be gharayan, a little bit remorseful, but not too much. Because if you become too remorseful, that you're not able to overcome the powerful momentum that you created in the material world, even though you've surrendered. He said, then you can psych yourself out and not continue in the process. As Nirkula quoted that verse the other day and said that it was one of Maya's tricks to then say, oh, I can't do anything because look at me, I have no power. And there's a similar statement that's extremely uplifting, and I highly recommend a regular review of this verse and purport from the Bhagavad Gita 3:31. Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti madhava. Where Krishna says, if you follow my injunctions, you'll be successful because they're true without exception. And in the purport, Prabhupada says that anyone who trusts Krishna and goes on with devotional service, even if they're not able to follow the injunctions properly, will be successful. On the other hand, if someone's dishonest and ignores Krishna in the ways of Mayavad and so forth, no matter how eloquent they are, they'll never be successful. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Yes. 1, 2. Or 1, 2. Tai goes the runner, infield fly rule.
In the verse Srimad Swakata Krishna, Lord Krishna says, I'm sitting in the heart and I purify the truthful devotee. Who is a truthful devotee? Because Ajamila, he didn't appear to be truly addressing the Lord. He was not truthful in addressing the Lord with the holy name, but yet he was purified anyway. So that means even a dishonest devotee can get purified by pretending to do some service or chanting. So, and also if you can explain what are the criteria of a truthful devotee?
Well, Prabhupada gave a simple answer to that when he was asked, and if I can just rephrase the question and see if it fits also. What's the difference between an accidental fall down and one that's done because, well, the opposite of an accidental fall down. One may say it's on purpose. What's the difference? And Prabhupada gave a simple answer. He said if they come back, it was accidental. And in the verse, Apichet suduracharo bhajate mamananya bhak sadureva samantavya samyag vyavasito hisa. Krishna mentions that someone may be worldly minded and may appear to be still attached to the world. But if they have a desire to surrender to Krishna, then they're properly situated. So then in the next verse, Krishna says, Shrupam bhavati dharmatma shashvash chantin nakashati konteya pratijanihi nami bhakti pranashati. That such a person with that desire to be purified will very quickly be overcome the last vestiges of attachment to the material world and be fully engaged in devotional service. And then Prabhupada asked the question, how can a pure devotee have a fall down? And he explains that it's the power of the material world. And the way to overcome it, he says, is to continue the process of devotional service. And as Prabhupada says there, just chant Hare Kṛṣṇa without stoppage. So understanding somebody's motive or our own motive may be very difficult because it's very complicated. But if one goes on chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa and sincerely trying, then devotional service, Prabhupada writes, in the light of the Bhagavat, the force will come and carry one along in devotional service, even if you change your mind and you don't want it, he said, he'll carry you along. Because that section, that purport in the light of the Bhagavad is about the season of autumn when mating takes place. And once whoever it is pregnant, they're going to give birth. In the same way, when one starts the process of devotional service, then the result will come. It can be waylaid if one is dishonest in the sense of trying to take advantage of the holy name, thinking that one's entitled to go on sinning, and then thinking that the holy name will clear that. So that's why the acharyas say we should guard against that. In fact, the first offense and the seventh offense, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says in this section of the Bhagavatam, are the most egregious. So we shouldn't develop a sense of entitlement. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. In this section, the chanting of Hare Kṛṣṇa has been purified a lot. So sometimes while chanting, it might happen that we might not be feeling anything. The process of chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa might become very dry. So I was thinking that this could be because of two reasons. One is that I'm not being sincere in my endeavors. I'm not putting in enough efforts. And the second reason could be that this is a test by Krishna. He is trying to see what does this devotee do when I do not reciprocate. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur also writes, Seva Sukha Dukha Parama Sampada Nashaya Vidya Dukha. So in this case, should I try to improve my chanting and struggle and figure out what's wrong? Or should I just keep on going on thinking that even if this is dukkha, this is miserable, still I'll not leave the process because this is param sampat for me.
Well, both those options sounded pretty good to me. You should definitely go on with the process, and you should also try to figure out how to improve. If we're not improving, we're getting worse, because there's no staying the same. And part of the improvement process is to be introspective and try to see the ways in which we may be held up in devotional service by holding on to material desires as an example. So, yes, it's recommended that one cultivate Sambandha Gyan and chant Hare Kṛṣṇa, and we should also examine ourselves regularly to see what our motives are and to try to improve that. Let's stand up. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Shastra says you should always stand up when a venerable Vaishnava or Vaishnavi comes. Otherwise your life airs will be crushed. That's not why we stand up exactly, but it's out of love and respect for our leaders. And for Vishaka Devi in particular. Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll just take two more and then we'll keep going. Yes.
So, Ajamila had been saying Narayan his whole life, well, not his whole life, but since his child was born. Was there a difference in the quality of or the result he was getting from that last Narayan that he chants at the time of death versus all of the other Narayans? I.e., was the last one the Namabhas and all of the others were Namaprada? Is there a difference in the quality between them?
Yes, there's a difference in quality. And it was because he felt helpless and he called out in that state. And he wasn't expecting to clear sins at any of those times. So there was an offense for any of the chanting, but Prabhupada specifically mentions, and that the verses specifically mention that he felt helpless at that time and therefore he called out with extra emphasis. Yes, they are. To not be Namabhas requires being deliberate. And this is mentioned by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Harinam Chintamani. So he says that there's two levels of namabhas. And the first level is mentioned, Sanketyam Parihasam Va, Stovam Helanameva Va, Vaikuntha Nama Grahanam, Asheshaga Haram Vidu. This is from this chapter, actually, which says that Sanketyam, if one chants Sanketyam Parihasam Va, chants for various indirect reasons, like as a designation, like you start a motorcycle shop and you call it Krishna, Hare Kṛṣṇa motorcycle. And people say, Hare Kṛṣṇa, I'm going to the Hare Kṛṣṇa motorcycle. Or like our Pakistani friend the other day down at, it's all over the internet. I stopped and talked to a perfectly nice young man, and he didn't want anything from us, so I said, well, here's a card, would you chant Hare Kṛṣṇa? He goes, I don't say Hare Kṛṣṇa. And all the devotees there had the same reaction. Sanketyam Parihasam means that you do it because you're joking. Stobam Helanam, musically. Helanam means you do it disrespectfully. All these ways. Vaikuntha Nama Grahanam, you still chanted the Vaikuntha name. And Asheshaga Haram Vidu, a learned person, a Vidu, knows that by that you just destroyed Asheshaga, unlimited sins from the heart. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in that same section, there's what's called high-level namabhas, which is when you're not in the offensive stage, but you're also not doing pure chanting yet. But your intention is to chant purely. And therefore you're informing yourself of the offenses to be avoided, especially Mayavad. And you go on chanting, he says there, you'll definitely be successful. From that level, you'll come to the perfectional stage. And it's important, the importance of the quality of the chanting is mentioned in a purport of one of the most important verses in the Bhagavatam, spoken by Devahuti, where she says, Aho batashva pachato garyanya jiva gre vartate namatubhyam te pusta paste juhuvustasna arya brahmanatra nama grananti ete. Oh, how wonderful is the holy name, she said, that if somebody just chants it once, a little bit with the tip of their tongue, that they first of all, are known to have already graduated from all the Vedic rituals. And they come to the purified position of even more than a Brahmin, so much so that they can perform Vedic sacrifices. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, but of course it depends on the quality of the utterance. So that's important, and that's something to keep in mind. It's the quality of the utterance. And we know that well, because if you have a spouse or a friend, the tone matters, doesn't it? My mom used to tell me that. I don't like your tone. It's like, but I said the right things. Like, you said it wrong tone. So Krishna hears the tone of voice based on our sincere desire. And he was helpless, was Ajamila, when he called out. So that gave special purification. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Okay, how about if we take one more? Did you have your hand up? Okay. Then we will, you ask heavy, intense questions. I better sit up.
Hare Krishna. Is there a consequence to how you pronounce the mantra or the name of the holy name? So, because in Sanskrit, even a little mistake in the pronunciation means something else. So is there a kind of something about the exact pronunciation and whether it's correct or not?
Well, what the exact pronunciation will differ if you talk to a South Indian and a North Indian or Chinese. If you go to China and hear them chant, you know, it's like, and Japan also. They pronounce R's as L's, and vice versa. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Well, there is a verse which describes, and I haven't memorized it yet, which describes how Krishna takes the intention. But that doesn't mean that we should be imprecise when we chant his name. There are 16 syllables according to the Kali Santarana Upanishad. 16 words and 32 syllables. So attentive chanting would include pronouncing those as clearly as possible. However, if one culturally, because of culture, says it in a slightly different way from someone else, it's not that Krishna doesn't respond. It's not the end of the world. And it's not the same as in a Vedic sacrifice where somebody reverses the syllables and then you get a monster. Not like that. Okay, so we should read a little more. You wanted to have an intermittent bhajan? Or more reading and then we'll have bhajan at the end. And how are we doing for time?
We have 54 minutes.
We have 54 minutes. That's pretty good. We're time wealthy right now. Everyone good?
Yes.
Okay. We're continuing on at 6-13. Correct?
Yes.
At the time of death, this Ajamila helplessly and very loudly chanted the holy name of the Lord, Narayan. That chanting alone has already freed him from the reactions of all sinful life. Therefore, O servants of Yamaraj, do not try to take him to your master for punishment in hellish conditions. Purport: the Vishnudutas, who are superior authorities, gave orders to the Yamadutas, who did not know that Ajamila was no longer subject to tribulation in hellish life for his past sins. Although he had chanted the holy name Narayan to indicate his son, the holy name is so transcendently powerful that he was automatically freed because he had chanted the holy name while dying, ante Narayana smritihi. As Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita 7:28, Yesham tvantakatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanva mohanirmukta vajante mam dradavrata. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and are freed from the duality of delusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. Unless one is freed from all sinful reactions, one cannot be promoted to the platform of devotional service. Elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita 8:5, it is stated, Antakale chamameva smaran muktva kalevaram yapriyati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshayaha. If one remembers Krishna, Narayan, at the time of death, one is certainly eligible to return immediately home back to Godhead. Sorry, I was just eyeballing the Vishwanath Chakravarti. One who chants the holy name of the Lord is immediately freed from the reactions of unlimited sins, even if he chants indirectly to indicate something else, jokingly, for musical entertainment, or even neglectfully. This is accepted by all learned scholars of the scriptures. Text 15. If one chants the holy name of Hari and then dies because of an accidental misfortune, such as falling from the top of a house, slipping and suffering broken bones while traveling on the road, being bitten by a serpent, being afflicted with pain and high fever, or being injured by a weapon, one is immediately absolved from having to enter hellish life, even though he is sinful. Purport: as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 8:6, Yang yang vapi smaran bhavam tajatyante kalevaram tam tam evaite kaunteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. If one practices chanting the Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra, he is naturally expected to chant Hare Kṛṣṇa when he meets with some accident. Even without such practice, however, if one somehow or other chants the holy name of the Lord, Hare Kṛṣṇa, when he meets with an accident and dies, he will be saved from hellish life after death. 16. Authorities who are learned scholars and sages have carefully ascertained that one should atone for the heaviest sins by undergoing a heavy process of atonement, and one should atone for lighter sins by undergoing lighter atonement. Chanting the Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra, however, vanquishes all the effects of sinful activities, regardless of whether heavy or light. Purport. In this regard, Srila Vishnudutas Chakravarti Thakur describes an incident that took place when Samba was rescued from the punishment of the Kauravas. Samba fell in love with the daughter of Duryodhana, and since, according to Kshatriya custom, one is not offered a Kshatriya's daughter unless he displays his chivalrous valor, Samba abducted her. Consequently, Samba was arrested by the Kauravas. Later, when Lord Balaram came to rescue him, there was an argument about Samba's release. Since the argument was not settled, Balaram showed his power in such a way that all of Hastinapur trembled and would have been vanquished as if by a great earthquake. Then the matter was settled, and Samba married Duryodhana's daughter. The purport is that one should take shelter of Krishna Balaram, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose protective power is so great that it cannot be equaled in the material world. However powerful the reactions of one's sins, they will immediately be vanquished if one chants the name of Hare Kṛṣṇa, Balaram, or Narayan. Shall we try all of them? Yes. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Balaram, Narayan. Text number 17. Although one may neutralize the reactions of sinful life through austerity, charity, vows, and other such methods, these pious activities cannot uproot the material desires in one's heart. However, if one serves the lotus feet of the Personality of Godhead, he is immediately freed from all such contaminations. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.42, Bhakti Parishadu Bhava Viraktir Anyatarcha. Devotional service is so powerful that one who performs devotional service is immediately freed from all sinful desires. All desires within this material world are sinful because material desire means sense gratification, which always involves action that is more or less sinful. Pure bhakti, however, is anyabilashita shunya. In other words, it is free from material desires, which result from karma and jnana. One who is situated in devotional service no longer has material desires, and therefore he is beyond sinful life. Material desires should be completely stopped. Otherwise, although one's austerities, penances, and charity may free one from sin for the time being, one's desires will reappear because his heart is impure. Thus, he will act sinfully and suffer. 18. As a fire burns dry grass to ashes, so the holy name of the Lord, whether chanted knowingly or unknowingly, burns to ashes without fail all the reactions of one's sinful activities. Makes you want to go out and Harinam right now, doesn't it? Purport. Fire will act regardless of whether handled by an innocent child or by someone well aware of its power. For example, if a field of straw or dry grass is set afire either by an elderly man who knows the power of fire or by a child who does not, the grass will be burned to ashes. Similarly, one may or may not know the power of chanting the Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra, but if one chants the holy name, he will become free from all sinful reactions. 19. If a person unaware of the effective potency of a certain medicine takes that medicine or is forced to take it, it will act even without his knowledge, because its potency does not depend on the patient's understanding. Similarly, even though one does not know the value of chanting the holy name of the Lord, if one chants knowingly or unknowingly, the chanting will be very effective. Purport. In the Western countries where the Hare Kṛṣṇa movement is spreading, learned scholars and other thoughtful men are realizing its effectiveness. For example, Dr. J. Stillson Judah, a learned scholar, has been very much attracted to this movement because he has actually seen that it is turning hippies addicted to drugs into pure Vaiṣṇavas, who voluntarily become servants of Krishna and humanity. Even a few years ago, such hippies did not know the Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra, but now they are chanting it and becoming pure Vaiṣṇavas. Thus, they are becoming free from all sinful activities such as illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling. This is practical proof of the effectiveness of the Hare Kṛṣṇa movement, which is supported in this verse. One may or may not know the value of chanting the Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra, but if one somehow or other chants it, he will immediately be purified, just as one who takes a potent medicine will feel its effects regardless of whether he takes it knowingly or unknowingly. 20. Sri Shukadeva Goswami continued, My dear king, having thus perfectly judged the principles of devotional service with reasoning and arguments, the order carriers of Lord Vishnu released the Brahmana Ajamila from the bondage of the Yamadutas and saved him from imminent death. My dear Maharaj Parikshit, O subduer of all enemies, after the servants of Yamaraj had been answered by the order carriers of Lord Vishnu, they went to Yamaraj and explained to him everything that had happened. Purport. In this verse, the word pratyudita is very significant. The servants of Yamaraj are so powerful that they can never be hindered anywhere. But this time, they were baffled and disappointed in their attempt to take away a man they considered sinful. Therefore, they immediately returned to Yamaraj and described to him everything that had happened. 22. Having been released from the nooses of Yamaraj's servants, the Brahmana Ajamila, now free from fear, came to his senses and immediately offered obeisances to the Vishnudutas by bowing his head at their lotus feet. He was extremely pleased by their presence, for he had seen them save his life from the hands of the servants of Yamaraj. Purport. Vaishnavas are also Vishnudutas because they carry out the orders of Krishna. Lord Krishna is very eager for all the conditioned souls rotting in this material world to surrender to him and be saved from material pangs in this life and punishment in hellish conditions after death. A Vaishnava therefore tries to bring conditioned souls to their senses. Those who are fortunate, like Ajamila, are saved by the Vishnudutas or Vaishnavas, and thus they return home back to Godhead. 23. O sinless Maharaj Parikshit, the order carriers of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Vishnudutas, saw that Ajamila was attempting to say something, and thus they suddenly disappeared from his presence. Purport. The Shastras say, Papishta ye durachara deva brahmana dindaka apatya bojanas te sham vakale maranam dhruvam. For persons who are papishta, very sinful, and durachara, misbehaved or very unclean in their habits, who are against the existence of God, who disrespect Vaishnavas and Brahmanas, and who eat anything and everything, untimely death is sure. It is said that in Kali Yuga one has a maximum lifetime of 100 years. But as people become degraded, the duration of their lives decreases, prayanal payusha, because Ajamila was now free from all sinful reactions. His lifetime was extended even though he was to have died immediately. When the Vishnudutas saw Ajamila trying to say something to them, they disappeared to give him a chance to glorify the Supreme Lord. Since all his sinful reactions had been vanquished, he was now prepared to glorify the Lord. Indeed, one cannot glorify the Lord unless one is completely free from all sinful activities. This is confirmed by Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita 7:28. Yesham tvantakatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva mohanir mukta vajante mandradavrata. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated and who are freed from the duality of delusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. The Vishnudutas made Ajamila aware of devotional service so that he might immediately become fit to to return home back to Godhead. To increase his eagerness to glorify the Lord, they disappeared so that he would feel separation in their absence. In the mode of separation, glorification of the Lord is very intense. Text 24 to 25. After hearing the discourses between the Yamadutas and the Vishnudutas, Ajamila could understand the religious principles that act under the three modes of material nature. These principles are mentioned in the three Vedas. He could also understand the transcendental religious principles which are above the modes of material nature and which concern the relationship between the living being and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Furthermore, Ajamila heard glorification of the name, fame, qualities, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He thus became a perfectly pure devotee. He could then remember his past sinful activities, which he greatly regretted having performed. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 2:45, Lord Krishna told Arjuna, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nityasattvasto Niryoga Atmavan. The Vedas mainly deal with the subject of the three modes of material nature. Rise above these modes, O Arjuna. Be transcendental to all of them. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. The Vedic principles certainly prescribe a gradual process for rising to the spiritual platform, but if one remains attached to the Vedic principles, there is no chance of his being elevated to spiritual life. Krishna therefore advised Arjuna to perform devotional service, which is the process of transcendental religion. The transcendental position of devotional service is also confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 126. Savai pumsam parodharmo yato bhakti radhotsaje. Bhakti, devotional service, is parodharma, transcendental dharma. It is not material dharma. People generally think that religion should be pursued for material profit. This may be suitable for persons interested in material life, but one who is interested in spiritual life should be attracted to parodharma, the religious principles by which one becomes a devotee of the Supreme Lord. Yato bhaktirad hokshaje. The Bhagavata religion teaches that the Lord and the living entity are eternally related, and that the duty of the living entity is to surrender to the Lord. When one is situated on the platform of devotional service, one is freed from impediments and completely satisfied. Haitukya pratiyata yayatma supasidati. Having been elevated to that platform, Ajamila began to lament for his past materialistic activities and glorify the name, fame, form, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 26. Ajamila said, Alas, being a servant of my senses, how degraded I became. I fell down from my position as a duly qualified Brahmana and begot children in the womb of a prostitute. Purport. The men of the higher classes, the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, do not beget children in the wombs of lower class women. Therefore, the custom in Vedic society is to examine the horoscopes of a girl and boy being considered for marriage to see whether their combination is suitable. Vedic astrology reveals whether one has been born in the Vipravarna, Kshatriya Varna, Vaishya Varna, or Shudra Varna, according to the three qualities of material nature. This must be examined because a marriage between a boy of the Vipravarna and a girl of the Shudra Varna is incompatible. Married life would be miserable for both husband and wife. Consequently, a boy should marry a girl of the same category. Of course, this is Traigunya, a material calculation according to the Vedas, but if the boy and girl are devotees, there need be no such considerations. A devotee is transcendental, and therefore, in a marriage between devotees, the boy and girl form a very happy combination. Reflections or questions? Yes.
We have had 25
What?
to 31 devotees watching online.
How many?
25 to 31.
Okay, 25 to 31 devotees online. Haribo! Thanks for joining.
So in text 15 it said that even chanting neglectfully frees one from sinful reactions. So I was wondering, does that refer to the offensive, the 11th offense of inattentive chanting?
No, there's a different standard for those who have inculcated Krishna consciousness. In other words, those who are fully aware of the efficacy of chanting, of the sambandha, our relationship with Krishna, the fact that his holy name is, he's fully present in his name, apanasam shritim goram, etc. And for those, for them, for such devotees who are aware, there's a responsibility that comes with knowledge. And therefore, there's a higher standard. One must be very careful to honor the holy name when the name is present, when one's chanting the name, and not be neglectful. It refers to those who are not yet aware and who neglectfully chant the holy name of the Lord.
I had another question.
Or even derisively, yes. 2 for the price of 1. Go ahead.
Ajamila could chant the holy names of the Lord, but only after when he was free from all sinful reactions could he then glorify the Lord. So I was wondering why the distinction was made between chanting and glorifying, because usually the same word is used, kirtana, and all activities of devotional service are considered to be absolutely the same.
Shravanam kirtanam vishnu smaranam harasevanam vandanam archanam dasyam sakyam atma nivedanam. Offering prayers is special. I'll tell. It came to my mind, so I'll mention it in this context. I heard an excellent class by Radhika Prabhu, and there is no other kind of class from Radhika Prabhu except excellent classes. It was in New Vrindavan, and he spoke about prayer. And he talked about how when he was a child, he grew up hearing the Bhagavatam. In fact, that's how he learned to read from his parents. And he relished, it was fun for the kids to hear the stories in the Bhagavatam and so forth. But whenever there would inevitably come a time when the devotee would offer prayers, he'd go, oh no, not again. Is that way, like, pastimes going on, and then the devotee offers prayers. And he said at that time he couldn't appreciate it as a child, but he came to appreciate what it meant in all of these pastimes when the devotee would pray to the Lord, which was that it reveals the relationship that the devotee has with the Lord. And you can try this yourself, I'm sure you do regularly, but think of it next time, that when you have to articulate words to glorify the Lord, there's a special thought process that goes forward that, oh, Krishna's a person, I'm addressing him, I'm talking to him, and so forth. And one has to be mindful, is more mindful in doing that. So there may be the revelation, we may have a revelation when we're offering prayers that it's more deliberate. In chanting the holy name of the Lord, of course we should be deliberate, but when you have to articulate and speak to the Lord, as Prabhupada says, there are different ways of offering prayers. One of them, he writes in a paragraph, is that you can admit to the Lord how you're being tossed by the waves of material nature in various ways. And of course, different modes of prayers, asking for service and so forth. My main point was that it takes more awareness to articulate prayers. Prabhu.
Is it possible for a neophyte devotee, a new devotee, or Kanista, to chant the pure name of Krishna just once? Or does he, the certain names? Or does he have to wait, to become, like a pure devotee like you, for example?
Well,
Chant, pure name of Krishna. Because I know Kanista, he is bound to chant offensively. But is it possible to chant once? with all this sincerity, because a Kanista is also sincere person, can happen, that you just chant, the pure name of Krishna just once.
What can happen is that one may experience a level of devotional service beyond one's adhikari. This is apparent in the pastime of Narada. When he was a child, he had lived in a single parent family, and then he lost that last parent, his mother. However, he had received mercy from the sages they stayed extra time just to minister to this child because they found him extremely advanced for a child. So they stayed 2 seasons, they inculcated Krishna consciousness in the child, and then the mother died, the sages had gone, and he left to look at the world and see Krishna everywhere. Notice the energies working. And he sat in the forest, he began to meditate on the Lord, and then he had an extraordinary experience where he was completely separate from his material body, and all of his spiritual senses were awakened and were all engaged in appreciating Krishna. And then he lost it. He came back into the bodily conception. And then he heard Krishna speak to him in an unembodied voice where he said, "You're a ku yogi." That means a bad yogi. Basically, you're still attached to the forest and various processes. And the indication there is that it's not mechanical. And although he gave him that experience, he then indicated that now you have a sense of it. You have to work for it. Stay engaged in devotional service. So we can get a free sample. But it requires, and from that, we may have an experience beyond our adhikari, which inspires us to chant purely because Krishna's given us an idea of what it feels like to be in that situation. And regarding surrender, however, Prabhupada talks about in the verse, Sarva Dharman Parityaja, that of course the possibility is there always and eternally that we can decide to surrender at any time. And in a conversation Prabhupada had with a gentleman who was proposing that the Sarva Dharma Parityaja verse means that, well, somebody would first have to be qualified to surrender, but Prabhupada interrupted him and said, no. He said, if you're poor and a rich person comes with a bag of money and offers it to you with no strings attached, my words, not Prabhupada's, the strings thing, and then you have 2 choices, which are 1 and 2, don't take it. So Krishna says, Sarva Dharma Parityaja, it's eternal nature of the soul to say, we could decide at any time. Prabhupada mentions in the purport to the Sarva Dharma Parityaja, you can accept it at any time. However, Yesham Tvanta Katam Papam Jananam Punyakarmanam Tedvanva Mohanir Mukta Bhajanti Mam Dridhavata. Prabhupada's quoted it 3 times since we sat down tonight. And that indicates that in order to have Dridhavrata in performing devotional service, in every context, Prabhupada put it, one has to be free from all sinful reactions. Just another side note, which may fit somewhere in that conversation. In the extensive commentary that we haven't come to yet, but which was given by Vishnudutas Thakur earlier, and then Prabhupada summarizes at the very end of this chapter. He says that people get the result of chanting at different times. It's not mechanical. It's a very personal relationship, the devotee chanting and the result that comes. And it takes time because just like a tree, some trees grow and then to bear fruit, it takes time for the fruit to come on the tree. It can't come immediately. And then he says something extraordinary, which I don't think I should even mention. I mean, it's in there, so I'll mention it. He says there's even the case that Krishna may not give the full result, immediate result of chanting to the Vaishnavas, because he doesn't want to discourage the karmis and the gyanis. They have their free will. They've decided to not surrender to Krishna or to take the indirect process. If every devotee got the immediate result of chanting the holy name of the Lord, they would be dissuaded from or discouraged in their misuse of their independence from not surrendering to Krishna. So he allows them that. Vishnudutas Chakravarti Thakur says that. In the context of how different devotees get the result of chanting at different intervals. Yes?
I've heard devotees explaining that when we get the higher taste, then we automatically lose the taste of lower things. So how is it that Ajamila fell into such a degraded position in life, even though he had experienced living a good life?
Good life is different from the transcendental life. And that distinction is made specifically in this pastime. He was engaged expertly in karma and jnana. He was living the life of a brahmana in the mode of goodness. But he had not reached the stage of being a purified Vaishnava by the grace of the holy name and the Vishnudutas. And that's one of the distinctions, clear distinctions made here between just Brahminical life and the life of a Vaishnava. So when one becomes a Vaishnava, one's automatically a Brahmana. Viprad Vishad Gunayitad Aravindana Vapada Aravinda Vipukashvapacham Varishnam Manye Tararpita Mano Vachane Hitarta Pranam Punati Sukhalam Tuburi Manaha. Prahlad Maharaj says that a Brahmana, especially if he doesn't have faith in Krishna, he can't even purify himself. Whereas a Vaishnava, even if he comes from the family of dog eaters, he can not only purify himself, but his whole family, his whole dynasty. So shows the superiority of bhakti. Yes?
Part two.
Yeah.
How is it then that sometimes we see like devotees who are born in, devotee children who are born to devotee parents, they turn to material life and give up their practices of Krishna consciousness?
It's because Krishna consciousness is not automatically. It's a choice, free will. So with young people who grow up in devotee families, oftentimes they have this sense of being born into it, and then they have to come to a reckoning at a certain point to decide whether they want to be a devotee or not. And that's the distinguishing aspect of devotional service. It's somebody makes a choice. It's not automatic. Each living entity has the opportunity to surrender to Krishna at any time. Use the free will. Prabhupada had 5 children. Only one was kind of a devotee. The other ones didn't take to it. So it's individual and not stereotyped.
I'm just trying to understand how that principle of like a higher taste would work then.
Where's the higher taste?
Yeah, because they say like if we have experience of a higher taste, we lose taste for things that are low.
That's logical. And it's given in the Bhagavatam in the context of eating food. Bhakti parishanu bhava viraktir anyata traishatrika ekakala prapadya manasa yatashadha shus tushti pushti shud apayunagasa means it's just like when you eat food and you get nourishment, satisfaction, your hunger goes away. In the same way, if you surrender to Krishna, then you feel devotion to Krishna, you see Krishna directly for yourself, and you get detached from all other things, just like when you're full, you don't want any more, and you know you don't want any more. So what's your main point? Or the main part of the question?
How can someone who's experienced the joy of Krishna consciousness then turn back to material life?
How can it happen? Well, there's ways in which those who have taken to Krishna consciousness may be overcome by material desires and forget about Krishna consciousness. We're in a liminal state as souls in the material body. The human condition is that we're subjected to, especially in this current age, we're subjected to all kinds of influences. So if someone takes to devotional service and they haven't reached a level of taste, as in past nishta into ruchi, or then even past that into asakti, then they can be easily dissuaded from devotional service at a certain point of their life. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Narada brings this up in his teachings to Vyasadeva in the 5th chapter of the 1st canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Navajano jatu katanchana vrajan mukunda sevan yavadangar samsmritim smaran mukundam grupaguhanam punar vihatamichet narasajano raha rasagraha jano jana. And there he says that if someone takes to devotional service and he falls down again from that practice of devotional service, he is then haunted by the taste of bhakti. He's having been, he says poetically, having been once embraced by Krishna, having taken to the process of bhakti, could fall down for any number of reasons. We could start cataloging the ways in which somebody can fall down. In fact, I once gave a Wednesday night class, which was not always the most attended class at our temple, because people work somewhere in the world. And but I named the class The Anatomy of a Fall Down. And that night when I looked in the class, it was packed. And it's like, what's everybody doing here? It's like, oh, it's the title, right? Yeah, well, we want to hear about how someone falls down. Because it's a fascinating subject, how somebody would attain Krishna consciousness and be embraced by Krishna and then give it back up again. And you'll have to watch the seminar to figure out all the ways you could fall down, or the normal process. But the point of the verse is, he says, someone who becomes a devotee, experiences the joy you're talking about, their rasagraha, they remember again and again the taste. And it's Vishnudutas Chakravarti Thakur who says they're haunted by the ghost of rasa. Because they may go work some stupid job and be fully entangled, maybe even pick up, one of those tobaccoless, I don't know what those machines are. People blow smoke. It's the most ludicrous looking thing. Vaping or something like that. And then be thinking, why am I doing this? I should be at Mangalarti right now or something like that. And they're reminded. And you find devotees who have drifted away. If they get together and have a couple glovjamans together in the back room, they start, remember when we were on book distribution? Remember when we were brahmacharis? And remember when why don't we just do that and go back? So devotees do remember the bliss and they come back. And Prabhupada writes in the light of the Bhagavad, in that same purport I alluded to earlier, he said, missteps, mistakes in devotional service may not be detrimental. They may become the pillars of success to the devotees. So if somebody makes a mistake, falls down, and I've seen it, if you live long enough, and I do recommend try to live as long as you can, you see a lot of reversals. People, they walk away and they go like, what was I thinking? And they come back. And you see that rasagraha. Prabhu, please go ahead.
In Prabhupada's room with him, and ex-sannyasi came in. He used to be president of the temple and sannyasi. And he sacrificed a lot for Prabhupada. He was fired up. And he came in the room, he had a mustache and kind of longish hair. He looked at Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I'm trying to forget Krishna. And Prabhupada looked at him and he said, that is not possible. And that was the end of the conversation.
That was worth the price of admission here tonight. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Okay, one or two more? 1, 2, and then we'll go for some more reading. Okay, it's 1, 2.
So my question, it's from text 16 where it says that one with heavy sin need to go through heavy atonement, lighter sin, light atonement, and we don't need to go through any atonement if we are doing the Hare Kṛṣṇa Mahamantra. But when I look at myself, I am not capable of taking any sort of atonement. I don't think I have any power. But then when I'm chanting, I'm not chanting good enough. And going through this chapter, I can understand that what is very important is the quality. Even if it's once, it's that quality. So getting that is for me, when I think about it, is difficult as well. So that quality. So I don't know, I sometimes when I don't feel a way out for me in this condition. And I have another question.
Wait, another question. You didn't even form a first question. There was no question mark at the end of it.
Yes.
Queen Kunti says, not Queen Kunti, Devahuti says the same thing to Kapila Dev. She said, I don't see any way out of this. She said, first of all, I'm sick and tired of being ruled by my senses. I'm really over this. But I still don't see a way out, because it really seems, whenever I think about it, like on my body, and my mind rules everything. How am I going to get out? And fortunately, Kapila Dev answers. And he says, you should hear and serve for a long time. You have to continue the process and have faith in it. Be determined. It's like swimming across an ocean. You can't get dissuaded. You just have to keep swimming. And of course, we should try to do the best we can. One of the things that we can do is get good association. This is one of the remedies for poor chanting, is chant in the association of those who have taste. And it rubs off. You're doing great, by the way. I mean, it's easy enough to become discouraged, because we may look and say, like, where am I compared to this and that? But look at what Krishna does in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Manushyanam sahasresu kasyat yatiti siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kasyan mam veti tatvata. And Lord Chaitanya, when he starts his instructions to Rupa Goswami, he names all the types of people in the world, and it gets rarer and rarer that those come to the practice of chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. So you're definitely in the 99.9 percentile already with what you're doing, and take these words to heart. The holy name is so powerful that even people who are inattentive become purified. You're leading into it. So just be patient and keep doing it, and plan ahead for one whole lifetime. Cross the finish line, over the finish line, and by Prabhupada's grace, everything you need is there, and you'll go back home, back to Godhead by Prabhupada's mercy. Follow the process. You're doing it. Don't look now, but you're doing it. Okay, one last one. Yes? Uh-oh.
About 10 minutes left.
Really? How'd that happen? That's horrible. Well, oh Prabhu, he was going to ask and then we switched. Ask quick, I'll give you a 60-second, watch, my wife's laughing. Thinks I can't give a quick answer.
I was just wondering about the last purport that we read at the end. It said, a devotee is transcendental, and therefore in a marriage between devotees, the boy and girl form a very happy combination. Should we take this for what is written there, or should we kind of, because there's different gradations of devotees, new devotees, pure devotees, etc. And do you think there's value in doing astrology?
Well, anyway, I got 60 seconds to answer. We should consider all things when taking up a marriage. It's important to consider compatibility. And of course, the most important compatibility is if you have a similar goal in life. Imagine you're sitting there chanting your rounds, you had extra rounds, and somebody looks at you askance and says, "Are you chanting again? Come on, let's go do something else." How are you going to feel? So that's obviously important to have that lined up. But there is a very strong case to be made that you should have intellectual compatibility and cultural, some sort of cultural compatibility, etc. So it's important to look into. The Grahasta Vision team has premarital education, which I highly recommend. In fact, the Christians came up with it years ago, and the rates of divorce precipitously went down because of the fact that they helped prepare young people who are getting married by a series, hundreds of questions in different categories so that they could understand ahead of time, before they make a corporate merger. Of course, you want to look at all the details of the merge. Before they would get married, so that they would have a good idea of what they're getting into. There's a very practical part of marriage, and then of course there's the romantic part and everything, which wears off in 6 months. No, that's according to sociological studies. So it's all important, and we can take that. Many Prabhupada's statements, that's why we have to read all the Prabhupada's books. There's counterbalancing statements everywhere. Om Tat Sat. Hare Kṛṣṇa. And now we have, I'm so sad to say this, it's almost over. This is why it's nice to have a program where you could do this for, 5, 6, 7 hours a day. Right?
Yes.
But we only get 2 days and a couple hours. Yeah. So we'll end with the bhajan, because we have the best harmoniist in maybe the universe with us tonight. And Rishabh, we called him, even though he's busy, he's got tests to take, he's studying at a very, very high level. He agreed to come down here and play because I like his mridanga playing. And we got the best percussionist here in the front row. What would you like to sing? We could. No. Do something with Nityananda. What? Narad Muni? What file do you have? I can do Ujjvala Bharana. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Gaura-Nitai, Shri Radha Gokulananda, Shri Sita Ram Lakshmana. Be so desire. Please bless everyone who came to the reading tonight, everyone who wanted to come, those who forgot to come, those who slept through it. That all of us may have a taste for hearing from Srila Prabhupada's books again and again, and thus invoking his presence in our lives, in our hearts. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part, please say Hare Kṛṣṇa. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Vanchakoptarishcha kripa sindhavebhya patitanam bhavnibhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.